Welcome in, everybody. Today is July 27th, 2025. I'm your host, Justin. You might know me elsewhere as Deconstruction Zone or DZ. We're going to grab our next guest, which is Howard, a theist from Spain, saying observing the golden ratio through nature is scientific evidence of a creator.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Welcome in, Howard. And I'm reading the call notes. It says observing the golden ratio through nature is scientific evidence of a creator. Do you believe in a generic creator, or do you believe in like a specific creator, like the creator of the Bible or the Quran or something else?
I haven't decided. I'm searching for truth and I'm just following the evidence. So I guess that would be generic, yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, so go ahead and kind of lay out your case for the golden ratio pointed to God. I'd be curious to hear how you fleshed everything out, and then I'm going to let Eric tackle this because he's going to do way better than I can ever hope to.
Cool, thank you. Okay, so for anyone that isn't aware of what the golden ratio is, it's digitalized as 1.618 ... It's an infinite number sequence, and it's what we see throughout nature. Nature tends to aim towards this golden ratio. We see it geometrically in spirals, the placement of seeds, and generally like the growth and scale. So that's why it's called the golden ratio. So like we can see in like pineapples and pine cones that there's always a spiral going clockwise and a spiral going anti-clockwise, and they tend to be the Fibonacci numbers, which are the numbers that help us get closer to the golden ratio. Because it's an infinite number, it's a number that we'll never know the full digits of. And we also see this not just in spirals, but also we see it, in spirals like the Romanesco broccoli. We see it in snowflakes. We even see the ratio in like the chicken egg, where it's 1 across to 1.618 across. And we know that eggs are really hard to break. And it also happens to be the best possible ratio for placement, the best possible ratio for growth. If we have like a propeller underwater, the best possible ratio for that to have the most force is the golden ratio, and it just happens to be what we see in nature. So I'd like to ask you guys, how can you say it's not rational? Well, how can you say it's rational to dismiss this evidence for intelligent design?
Well, I mean, the biggest problem is that intelligent design isn't a working theory. Intelligent design did not predict that we should be able to look to nature to find technological solutions. That's just a retrofitting of data onto an explanation. So that would be like the number one thing.
Can I word it differently, Eric, just to see if I can get the answer a bit more clarified? Could you cite any alternative example of random chance producing reproducible perfection? Because it literally is the best possible ratio that you could.
I've never heard that you use the golden ratio to create the best possible propeller design. I've never heard that specific claim before. So I would like to see a study on that. I don't think I'm not going to Google during midstream here, because then I won't be talking and this is a call-in show. So that's not really what the people want. But what I can tell you, you're giving a very strawman-y presentation of the alternative. If a God doesn't exist, then everything is just blind random chance. No, that's not the case at all. Things in the universe happen according to natural law. I don't really draw any distinction between the laws of physics and whatever natural law is supposed to be, me personally. But if we take chemistry and life, why do compounds form chemical bonds? Because they're always trying to reduce their energy state or whatever. A real scientist would probably be able to put that in better terms. But why is a bubble always spherical? Because that has the maximizes the surface area to volume ratio. Even when you start combining bubbles together and you can get cool like tesseract patterns, the bubble, like the surface area of those bubbles will always maximize or like minimize in energy, right? Now, life is a chemical system. It does the same kinds of things at a very reductionist level. Life is just chemistry. And so we can look to, the reason we see this the golden ratio phenomena is because it's a ratio of Fibonacci numbers. Now, and life is all about conserving energy, right? So like a Fibonacci sequence, you know what that is, right, Howard?
Yeah, I mentioned it before, didn't you hear?
Okay.
That's what we see in the
I didn't hear
pine cones and the
Fibonacci, but
pineapples.
Yeah, I'll take your word for it. So if like organisms, because they grow and develop, they do things. There's like a causal link, right? There's a chain of events for the way an organism grows, whether it's those cool succulents that grow in that spiral pattern, or a pine cone, or a nautilus shell. I have a nautilus shell, but it's in the other room. Otherwise, I'd hold it up on stream here. Well, if what you're doing, like the way an organism or a part of an organism grows in those, like a series of iterative steps, the next thing you do is based on prior things. So you're just naturally going to see a Fibonacci sequence. There's this weird, like there's this, not like, I don't know what to call it. We pretend that numbers, like we glorify numbers in these weird kind of ways. Like, oh, it's like we see for the Fibonacci sequence, like 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. Well, but you can create a number out of anything. I can say that there are, I'm not going to count them, 15 pencils or whatever right here, or I can say there's one cluster of pencils right here. And an organism can be like that when it's made of tissue and the tissue is growing, and in order to make the organism or the part of it or whatever get bigger, because the way that occurs is through these iterative steps, you're going to see something like a Fibonacci sequence result from that. And it's not because the numbers or anything are magical. It's because you're just doing one thing after the other. So these golden ratios, yeah, sometimes they're seen that way. From what I've seen, though, so much of the golden ratio stuff it's not really a golden ratio. It's a golden ratio if you fudge the numbers, if you round up or down to force a golden ratio to fit. Like they do that with the human face. I was like, well, based on, I can't remember exactly where you draw the lines for it, but it's like, okay, well, if it's like where the nose is, okay, do I go from the very tip of the nose or the base of the nose or what? Like you can completely subjectively pick wherever your starting and ending point is for so many of these measurements to make something that if you round it up or down is kind of close to that golden ratio. So, I mean, that's a lot. I can say a lot more, but I'll give you an opportunity to. What's up?
Thanks. I just wanted to quickly ask, because I mentioned that nature aims towards the golden ratio, because we only see perfection in number. We don't see it in nature.
Well,
what I think on my main point. Can I just quickly say one thing?
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Say again?
No, okay. Go ahead. I want you to finish. I was going to say, when you finish, I got something to say about that.
Cool. I wasn't originally saying that this is irrefutable proof of intelligent design. I was asking how can you rationalize dismissing this as evidence for intelligent design when we think of Occam's razor? Surely my explanation is way more simple than what you're theorizing, Eric.
So let me just add two things to this, because I think Occam's razor is something that some people appeal to. They don't really need to, but in this case, you already did. But I think it sides with us, right? So if in fact things are stronger when they evolve to have a Fibonacci sequence. Like, let's just imagine that is the case, right? Well, that matches what we see in evolution. The things that have the best chances of survival are the things that are going to reproduce, and the things that have a lower chance of survival are the things that are not going to be able to reproduce. So that being the case, then what we would expect to see is a high frequency of items that follow the Fibonacci sequence. And I think, that being said, we would say the opposite then about God, because if God created all this nonsense here, right? What that means is if the Fibonacci sequence is like the best possible way to create stuff, then what that means is the majority of everything God ever created, he decided to not use the most preferred method, even with humans. He decided not to use the most preferred method mathematically to create us, but he cared about broccoli for some reason.
All right, Justin, I get what you're saying, but can I just remind you, I'm not just talking about the Fibonacci numbers. I'm also talking about the ratio itself in construction, the growth, you know, how things scale in growth, and also in how we see these angles in spirals. And we, you know, it's not just the Fibonacci numbers. I mean, doesn't that give lend more evidence or more
in terms of
strength to this as evidence? Because it's not just Fibonacci numbers, it's the ratio, it's the angle of the spirals.
The angles are not preferred. So I want to make sure and attack the first part, which is that the Fibonacci sequence is not the preferred, like, building sequence for strength. Like, so like I'm an engineer, had to take engineering classes. I'm an electrical engineer, but early on we had to take lots of mechanical courses as well. I'm pretty aware that like the most mechanically sound systems are not systems that are built around the Fibonacci sequence, or so we would see them in bridges, we would see them in homes. Are they effective? Yes, arches we proved were effective way back in ancient Rome, but are they the most efficient and most effective ways to build things? No, they're not. We've actually got better things. So like saying that we've got this Fibonacci sequence, you know, and somehow it's like the best of everything. It's just not.
Well, as you mentioned evolution, and I'm really glad that Erica mentioned about a seashell, because that's where we see the spirals most visually, most easily. You guys are aware that some of these fossils are classed as ancient fossils. So, you know, without arguing about timelines, I'm just saying, if these are ancient fossils and they're showing the phi ratio, the spiral of the golden ratio, the phi, in a spiral angle, well, doesn't that kind of lend more evidence that there wasn't no evolution? Because we see the Fibonacci numbers, the golden ratio in construction, and also the spirals now, and we see them in fossils, which you class as ancient as well. So doesn't that kind of show that there wasn't any evolution from then till now?
No, and I'm very happy to get into that, but you've said a lot of things, and I wrote that one down so we can come back to it a little bit later. But so earlier when you were talking, you're referencing this golden ratio and perfection. You specifically mentioned perfection. Literally, I don't think anything is perfect. You brought up intelligent design, which I want to get in. I want that to be the next thing we get into. But the Occam's razor comment you made, I don't think you're understanding this very well. So you think that you are preserving Occam's razor because you're invoking a creator that creates these things that follow a Fibonacci sequence, express a golden ratio, or whatever. You specifically mentioned chicken eggs earlier. So Howard, do you think that a literal miracle occurs every time a chicken egg forms?
You're talking to a creationist, so obviously the answer would be yes. Whenever there's conception, I believe it's a miracle, yeah.
Okay, what about a snowflake? Every time a snowflake forms, do you think a literal miracle occurs?
Oh, God bless you. Thank you so much. I forgot to mention snowflakes also, so the phi ratio and Fibonacci, not Fibonacci, sorry, but what do you call it, fractal. Every snowflake, when you look at it under a microscope, is different, but every single snowflake has 5, I guess you'd call it arms. stemming out from the center,
6.
and 5 is how you get to phi. It's the magical number, which again ties all back to an intelligent designer, leaving his little signature mark for those with eyes to see, I believe. Sorry.
Okay. So the question was, do you think a literal miracle occurs every time a snowflake forms?
Yes, because they're all different,
Okay.
like the pupils of our eyes, no two the same, but they're all geometrically perfect.
Right. Every dump I've taken, they're all, every turd is completely different too. That's not an argument. So do you understand that we, like with the water molecule, we understand the bond angles. And so we know why scientifically a snowflake is very, very likely to form a 6-sided shape. Are you aware of that? That's all I'm asking.
Sorry, could you rephrase that again? Or could you just
Are you aware that we know scientifically, because of the shape of the water molecule, what the type of bond geometry a water molecule will form with other water molecules? Are you aware that we scientifically know that? And so we already know why, like we have a scientific understanding of why they would be inclined to form 6-sided shapes?
Unlike your turds, so they do have a pattern, but they're all uniquely different at the same time. So back to your argument, you've got a good argument, I'll give you that, but I could argue that God
I haven't gotten anywhere close to finishing my argument yet. You don't know what my argument is at the moment. So I meant your conclusion. Sorry. You don't know my conclusion yet because I haven't given it. So I don't think you actually think a literal miracle occurs every time a snowflake forms, because a literal miracle suspends the laws of nature and certainly the laws of physics, because a creator doesn't use the laws of physics to do anything. It's literally supernatural. Okay. So no, I don't think that, I don't even think you think that a literal miracle occurs every time a chicken forms an egg, every time a snowflake forms. And so you and I actually think the same way. When we look out there and we see that, broccoli grows that certain way that it does, that shells coil in the certain way they do, we both think that when a snowflake forms the shape it does, we both think that it does that because the laws of nature, the laws of physics, whatever, are set up in a way that that's how it manifests. Now, what you do, and again, we were talking about, this is all about Occam's razor. What you do is you attach the most complex imaginable thing, a supernatural creator that's responsible for all of it. And that's why we see those things. You're very plainly the one violating Occam's razor when you do that, because we will agree fundamentally about, how those structures form and that they're like describable through physics or whatever, but then you're adding the other thing. So you're the one in violation here.
Well, I disagree, but with all respect, yeah, I meant to say I disagreed with your premise before, but fair enough. We can agree to disagree. I mean, my main point, like I said, but that you said you wanted to get back to anyway, was as we see it in fossils, which you guys class as ancient, doesn't that show that there hasn't been any evolution if we see it in fossils and we see it in life now?
No,
absolutely not. There were, because you don't know that the shells are the same thing, right? Like, I don't know. T-Rex walked on 2 legs. I walk on 2 legs. Therefore, no evolution has occurred. Like to point to some random cherry-picked generic phenotype and say, oh, because I see preservation of that trait across different species across time, therefore evolution isn't a thing. That is terribly naive.
Again, I agree to disagree because I can't see what's illogical about what I'm saying. If we see the same perfect ratio in the past that we see now, then that shows me there hasn't been no evolution in that aspect.
It's
as if
you keep attributing perfect. Yeah, thank you. Eric and I have the same question.
Yeah.
You keep saying it's perfect, but it's not perfect. Like you're just asserting that it is. We don't agree with that premise that it's perfect by any means. What's it perfect for?
Well, you know the YouTube channel Numberphile? They really show some really good videos about how perfect the golden ratio is mathematically and how nature does aim towards that, and that's why nature survives.
If it's effective, yes, but you're saying it's perfect. Maybe, so what do you mean by perfect?
That it's the best ratio of construction. It's the best possible
for what?
Ratio for
Howard,
this. What do you call
it's
it?
An irrational
when you put out seeds, you look at a sunflower and you see the seeds.
Right, but best for what is what I'm asking.
It's the best possible scale. It's the best possible.
I mean by scale, it comes in all sizes.
Strength. It's the best possible to move. Right, for a structure, sorry, I'm not explaining myself very well, I'm a bit dyslexic. A structure to be as strong as possible, it would have to go up or down in the golden ratio. And we can see this.
We already covered this. Like, structures are much stronger.
Infinitely.
Structures are much stronger in like a geodesic form or typically in like a triangular format because you can distribute the loads more appropriately than you could with like some sort of golden ratio. And we don't even know how you could implement the golden ratio into some sort of a mechanical structure like a building. How would you even do that? There's not even a method for it.
If you had a golden ratio arc or arch,
well, all the ancient
it
buildings
be symmetrical. It would not bear load consistently. That would be a terrible design choice, actually. But this whole thing about that it's perfect, the golden ratio is irrational. Why can't I just say that only a rational number would be perfect? How can there be perfection in an irrational number? That doesn't make any sense.
Sounds rational to me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's irrational to us appears to have been designed from something that's outside of our physical space and time, because the pi number is also infinite, and that has patterns inside its code, inside its number sequence itself, which I'd have to show you. I can't really get into that now.
Anything that is round has the ratio of pi in it. That is just a natural consequence of being round. It requires no further deeper explanation at all. There's just a property of things that are circular. Man, what else did I write down from my notes?
Before we jump into that, can I? Okay.
Well,
there's really nothing more to get into with that.
Yeah, there's not much else. I want to hear what else was in his notes before we get lost on another tangent. And we've got another caller that wants to get in. So we've got a hard cutoff at 7:30. So I want to make sure we can get to our next caller. But go ahead, Eric.
So, Howard, do you understand that intelligent design isn't a working theory? It doesn't make any predictions.
Well, I predict that everything in the future will have the golden ratio, because if it doesn't, that would be de-evolution. So there's a prediction for you, which would also disprove evolution.
Is there a golden ratio in this?
Turns out without the golden ratio in the future.
Howard, I just crumpled up this piece of paper. Is there a golden? Do you think there's a golden ratio in this?
You're not God, but if I can just ask one last question, a quick one to Justin.
Well, everything in the future will have the golden ratio.
So I just want to address what you said real quick before you move on to your last question, which is like you're suggesting that the preferred state is that everything is made from the golden ratio. But if you are a believer in a God who designed things, and then he didn't use the preferred design method, then he's just kind of a goof. Well, why would he have this perfect design method and then just not use it everywhere?
I'm not a Christian, but what's that argument that you know it better than me, that from the fall, due to sin. There's corruption and abomination and stuff. But like I say, I'm not a Christian. I see a lot of religions talking about the Garden of Eden and a serpent.
Seem to be a Christian. Yeah. So, I mean, what I'm suggesting is that, like, you're saying that we need this theistic concept to explain the golden ratio, because we see it pop up, and the golden ratio is like the most preferred way to do things. But irregardless of the fall, even before the fall, God didn't use the golden ratio to build everything. Like, animals didn't become fundamentally different after the fall. Like, animals were still animals. Mankind still had ribs. Like, the structure of our ribs didn't change. That's ridiculous.
Well, again, I could argue, if you look up the video on YouTube, the mathematical model of the universe, that God did use the golden ratio and pi to create the universe. So that's something you could look into in another time.
We'll certainly do some of that homework later. So what was the last thing you wanted to ask?
Cool. I think you'll enjoy this point. So you're aware that supposedly Jesus lived to 33 to live a perfect life cycle in the Quran, the Bible, even the Gnostics. I think everyone agrees that he was 33 years old, yeah?
I mean, roughly 33.
I hate to ask, but what's perfect about the number 33?
That. Well,
you did it, Peterson, and why would you do it?
If I may, well, I'm just about to get there, Erica, don't worry. So yeah, Freemasons love 33 degrees. But my main point was, if we say that Jesus is known to be 33 years old, maybe it's not a coincidence that the sun and the moon realign with each other every 33 years. The Son of God was 33 years to do a perfect life cycle. Well, the other Son of God also takes 33 years to do a perfect cycle with the moon. And in pi, like I was saying, the first number 0 appears in the 33rd position of the number sequence. And you got 33 vertebrae in your spine, which is supposed to be the Jacob's stairway to heaven. So it's just interesting how God leaves numbers in certain places for people to
But we can do that with any number. There's no number that we can't look at and just say, look, it shows up in all these situations. Like, you're just saying, here's a number and it shows up a lot. Cool. All the numbers do. This is like saying, oh, I bought a Volkswagen. Now that I've got a VW, all I do is notice other VWs on the road. It's a miracle that we have all these VWs. No, like, well, you're just practicing a form of pareidolia, where now you're just saying, here's a number I like. Where else can I find it? That's a meaningless and futile endeavor. Well, all you're doing at this point is just like convincing yourself of deeper and deeper levels of nonsense.
And also, I said earlier,
I appreciate your opinion. Did you know about the sun and the moon taking 33 years, or is that new to you?
They don't. They take about 32.8 years. But this is what I was talking about earlier. I asked you, do you know that intelligent design isn't science, and that it's not a working theory, and that all it is retrofitting things? And I don't even remember what you said to that, but for crying out loud, what you just said is the perfect tell of that. The creator of the entire universe coded in the number of vertebrae we have something about how long Jesus lived for. That's not a prediction. That's just a Texas sharpshooter fallacy, and a really wild and silly one at that. And it's another subjective one, because you'd have to include the sacrum and the coccyx to get to 33. Your spine is your cervical, thoracic, and lumbar vertebra, and we have 24 of those. You're picking things out and saying, oh, geez, these disconnected things are connected, with no evidence that they're connected in any way. There's no explanatory mechanism here whatsoever. It's just, well, what if that thing that, if you kind of close your eyes and don't look, is similar to that thing over there? What if they're connected? You're just making stuff up.
I don't know if you know this, but like number 69 shows up in nature all over the place.
And it's in the Kama Sutra. Therefore, it was divinely inspired.
Yeah, of course.
It's divinely inspired. Well, listen, Howard, I think
But do you
we've
guys-
had quite a bit of conversation,
you
and
guys-
I've actually enjoyed it quite a bit. But the problem is we're running out of time, and I want to get to the next guest. So please call in. You know, the show will be live again, obviously, next week. We'd love to hear from you again in the future. If we had more time, I'd love to keep you on because I think you're a delightful person to talk to. I think you're kind. It's just that we've unfortunately right now we've got to move on to the next guest. But I appreciate you calling in.
Thank you. Can I formally challenge you to a debate on a neutral platform, a moderated debate?
And no.
I've been speaking to James. And he'd be happy to host it. It's because I think it'd be great.
I'll pass.
To show some
So
visuals with the evidence that I've got.
So
How about
Howard, every monkey and his uncle wants to debate me on MDD, and I don't. There's no benefit for me to be on the platform. I love James's platform, but I have my own channel that I do my own content on, and that supports the work that I do. If I have somebody who wants to debate a really good topic, like a really great topic that needs to be debated, then I agree to it. But other than that, no, I don't just debate, any guy on the internet that wants me to get on MDD. You have to earn that spot, and I don't think you've shown that you've earned it during this call. But we appreciate you calling in.
Well, I did.
All right, let's grab Richard from California. Richard, I think, is an atheist or maybe an agnostic. It says, is the dictionary definition. Now, with that being said, we're out of callers, but we're also basically out of time as well. So we want to thank our backup for the night. Scotty, my friend, can you come up and say hello? Welcome
Hey there.
in,
Hey there. All right. Great show. Great show. And I have to say, as a math teacher, there was one call there in particular that was very painful for me to listen, but I thought both of you handled that just perfectly. And when Eric mentioned the Texas sharpshooter fallacy, that was just the cherry on the top. And so I need to have a cigarette after this, but great job on that one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I know who that was. I've seen him debate people before, and he's out there. He's wild.
Yeah.
Well, Scott, thanks for backing us up today. Did you have any other thoughts on the other calls, or did you just get like a little turned inside out when you heard someone destroying math?
Well, I mean, as far as the I know we're out of time, so I'll just be real quick. As far as the golden ratio is concerned, it's based on the Fibonacci sequence, which is a very, very basic iterative growth procedure. And so so it shouldn't be surprising at all that we see it in play, and look where it shows up in nature. In a plant that's growing, in a shell that's building. It's all these iterative growth situations. And so it would be shocking if it didn't show up. And so it was just very, very, very frustrating to see all that misrepresented.